We are journeying through the Old Testament like never before, uncovering the hidden meanings and powerful lessons behind the stories that have inspired courage, faith, and wisdom for thousands of years. Before time had a name, the voice that created everything. Before time had a name, there was no morning and no night, no seconds waiting to move forward, no past and no future. There was only God. He did not exist inside time. Time would exist inside him. There was no sky, no ground, no breath, no sound. Only the presence of the Eternal One. Darkness was not an enemy. It was simply unfinished, a deep without shape, a silence full of possibility. God was not lonely. He was complete. He did not need creation. Creation would need him. Then God chose to speak. The first sound was not thunder. It was not wind. It was not fire. It was the voice of God. Let there be light. Light did not slowly appear. It did not struggle through darkness. It obeyed. In an instant, light existed, pure, alive, radiant. Darkness did not disappear. It stepped aside. Because everything responds to the authority of God. God saw the light, and he knew it was good. This was not a human judgment. This was divine delight. Light was separated from darkness, and with that separation, time began to breathe. Day, night, the first rhythm of existence. God spoke again. An expanse formed. Space opened. Waters moved apart, above and below, and the sky stretched wide. No eyes watched it happen, yet it was beautiful, because beauty does not need witnesses, only purpose. God named what he created, because naming is authority, and authority belongs to him. Then God spoke to the waters, "Let dry ground appear." The earth rose, solid, strong, prepared. Seas gathered, boundaries formed, nothing crossed the line. God set. Order replaced emptiness. God looked, and it was good. Then the voice spoke to the land, "Let the earth bring forth life." The ground responded, grass pushed upward, plants formed, trees stood tall, seeds carried the future inside themselves. Before hunger existed, provision was already prepared. God saw it, and it was good. Still the heavens were waiting. God spoke again. Lights filled the sky. The sun burned with purpose, not to be worshipped, but to serve. The moon followed, gentle and faithful, governing the night. Stars appeared, more than anyone could count. Each placed, each known, each named. Long before humans would look up and wonder, God had already written their places. Time now had signs, days, seasons, years. Yet the world was still quiet in one way. No living voice answered God. So God spoke to the waters. Life filled the seas. Creatures of every form moved through the deep, some large, some unseen, all known. Above the earth, birds took flight, wings cutting through the sky, songs filling the air. This was the first music of creation. God blessed them because life was meant to multiply. God saw it, and it was good. Then God spoke to the land again. Animals came forth, wild and gentle, strong and small, each according to its kind. The earth was alive, moving, breathing. God saw it, and it was good. Yet something was still missing. Creation reflected God's power, his wisdom, his order, but it did not reflect his image. Then God spoke differently. "Let us make man in our image." This was not command alone. It was intention. From the dust of the ground, God formed a body. Hands shaped what words could not: care, purpose, design. Then God breathed. The breath of God entered lifeless dust, and man became alive. This breath was not air. It was life, spirit, connection. Humanity opened its eyes, and the first thing it saw was God. Not fear, not confusion, but belonging. Man was not created to survive. He was created to walk with God. God placed him in a garden, not a wilderness, not a prison, but a home. Everything was provided. Nothing was missing. God spoke to the man, not as a ruler alone, but as a father. Work was given, not as punishment, but as purpose. Then God saw something else. "It is not good for man to be alone." This was the first thing called not good, not sin, not failure, but solitude. So God caused man to sleep, and from him he formed woman. When man saw her, he recognized himself, and something more: unity, partnership, love. They were naked and not ashamed, because shame had not yet been born. God walked with them, spoke with them, lived among them. He gave one command: not to restrict, but to protect. Choice existed, because love without choice is not love. Time passed, and a new voice entered the story, not creative, not life-giving, but questioning. Did God really say? Doubt was planted, trust was tested. Humanity chose independence over obedience, knowledge over relationship, and in that moment something broke. Eyes opened, but innocence closed. Shame entered, fear followed. They hid from the voice they once loved. God still came walking, not to destroy, but to restore. Where are you? This was not a question of location, but of relationship. Consequences followed, because choices matter. The ground would resist, pain would enter life, death would begin its slow work. But God did not leave without hope. A promise was spoken, that one day evil would be crushed. Time moved forward, generations rose and fell, sin spread, but grace followed. God watched humanity forget him, ignore him, defy him, yet he remained faithful. He sent floods, he made covenants, he called families, he raised nations. Through it all, the same voice remained, the voice that created, the voice that called, the voice that promised. And one day, that voice would enter creation again, not as thunder, not as command, but as a child. The word would become flesh. The voice that said, "Let there be light," would one day say, "Follow me." The Creator would walk among his creation. Time would finally meet eternity, and everything that began before time had a name would move toward restoration, because the voice that creates also redeems. And when all things are finished, that same voice will speak again, and all creation will listen. The silence before the fall, Eden's last perfect morning. Before the fall, there was silence. Not empty silence, but peaceful silence. A silence filled with life, with breath, with meaning. The garden woke gently. Light touched the leaves. Dew rested on every blade of grass. There was no fear in the air, no rush, no need to hide. This was Eden, the place where God walked with humanity. Adam opened his eyes to a world that did not hurt. His first breath was calm. His heart did not race, because nothing threatened him. Eve stood nearby. Her presence was familiar and safe. They did not need words to understand one another. Their connection was deeper than language, because love existed before explanation. They rose together, bare feet touching ground that welcomed them. The earth did not resist. It gave freely. Trees stood full, heavy with fruit, every color alive, every scent gentle. Nothing decayed, nothing died. The animals moved without fear. A lion rested near lambs. Birds sang without warning cries. No creature hunted, no creature hid. Adam walked through the garden with purpose, not to survive, but to care. Work was not heavy, it was joy. Every plant responded to his touch. The ground trusted him. Eve followed, her laughter soft, unashamed, unhidden. They were naked, and there was no shame, because shame had not yet entered creation. God walked with them, not distant, not unseen. His presence did not overwhelm, it comforted. They spoke with him as children speak with a father. Oh, pen, honest, free. God taught them, not through commands alone, but through closeness. He showed them the order of creation, the beauty of obedience, the safety of trust. There was one boundary, one tree, not placed to tempt, but to teach. Obedience was the language of love, and choice was the gift of freedom. The tree stood quietly, not glowing, not threatening. It waited. The serpent watched. It was clever, observant, patient. It did not rush, because deception works best slowly. The serpent did not approach Adam. It approached Eve, not because she was weak, but because she was thoughtful. It spoke softly, almost kindly. Its words were not sharp, they were curious. Did God really say? The question hung in the air, not loud, but heavy. Eve paused. This was new. Never before had the words of God been questioned. Never before had doubt been invited. She answered carefully, repeating what she knew. The serpent listened, then spoke again. You will not die. The lie did not scream. It whispered, God knows that when you eat, your eyes will open. The seed was planted, desire entered, not hunger, but wanting more, to know, to be like God. Eve looked at the tree, truly looked. The fruit was beautiful, not poisoned, not ugly. The danger was not in the fruit, it was in the disobedience. She reached. Time seemed to hold its breath. Adam watched, silent. He did not stop her. He did not speak. The fruit touched her hand, then her lips. She ate. Nothing exploded. No thunder struck. For a moment, everything seemed the same. Adam ate, and something broke. Not the garden, but the human heart. Their eyes opened, but not to glory. They saw themselves exposed, vulnerable. Shame entered. They felt it immediately, like cold where warmth once lived. They covered themselves, not for protection, but for hiding. Fear followed. When they heard God walking, they ran. The same voice that once brought comfort now caused terror. They hid among trees that once welcomed them. God called, "Where are you?" Not because he did not know, but because relationship had been damaged. Adam answered, his voice shaking, "I was afraid." Fear had a name now. God asked questions, not to accuse, but to reveal. "Have you eaten?" Silence returned, but this time it was heavy. Blame followed. Adam pointed to Eve. Eve pointed to the serpent. Responsibility fractured. God spoke judgment, not in rage, but in justice. Consequences were declared. Pain would enter life. The ground would resist. Death would come. The serpent would crawl. Humanity would struggle. But hope was spoken. One day evil would be crushed. The garden would not last, but the promise would. Adam and Eve were clothed, not by themselves, but by God. Even in judgment, mercy moved first. They were sent out, not abandoned, but protected. The garden gate closed. The silence of Eden was gone. Time moved forward. Humanity multiplied. Sin spread. Pain grew. Yet God continued to speak. He called, he warned, he promised. The silence before the fall was never forgotten. It became a memory written into the human soul, a longing for something lost. Every tear, every prayer, every hope, all pointed back to Eden and forward to restoration. One day the voice would come again, not walking in a garden, but hanging on a cross. The silence would fall once more, and through sacrifice, the way back would open. Not to a garden alone, but to eternal life, because the God who spoke before time never stopped speaking, and the silence before the fall would one day be replaced by eternal peace. Blood on the ground that cried to heaven. The world was no longer perfect, but it was still young. The garden gates were closed, yet the memory of Eden lived quietly inside the human heart. Adam and Eve walked a harder earth now. The ground resisted their hands, pain followed effort, and time carried weight. They had sons. Cain was the first, strong, determined, a worker of the soil. Abel followed, gentle, watchful, a keeper of sheep. They grew beneath the same sky, heard the same stories about a garden once walked by God, about a choice that changed everything, yet their hearts were not the same. Cain loved the ground, but the ground did not love him back. He worked hard, sweat soaked the soil, yet frustration followed him. Abel tended his flock. He watched life grow, protected it, cared for it. He understood something Cain did not, that life was a gift, not something to be forced. Time passed, and the moment came to bring offerings to God. Cain brought fruit from the ground, what he had worked for, what cost him effort. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, the best, the life itself. God looked not only at the offering, but at the heart behind it. He accepted Abel and his offering, but Cain he did not accept. The difference was not produce versus animal, it was trust versus pride. Abel gave in faith, Cain gave in obligation. Cain felt it immediately, the rejection burned. His face fell, his heart tightened. God spoke to him, not in anger but in warning. Why are you angry? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? Sin is crouching at the door. It desires you, but you must rule over it. Cain heard the words but did not let them enter. He looked at Abel, and comparison poisoned him. Abel had not wronged him, yet Abel became the mirror of his failure. Jealousy grew, unchecked, unconfessed. Cain spoke to Abel, not with honesty, but with invitation. They went into the field. The earth that once received blessing, now waited silently. Cain rose against his brother. There was no battle, no long struggle, just one moment, one decision. The first human blood spilled onto the ground. Abel fell, life leaving him. The breath God had given returned to silence. The earth drank the blood, and the ground cried out. God came, not because he did not know, but because justice requires acknowledgement. Where is your brother? Cain answered, cold, defensive. I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper? The question echoed through generations. God replied, the voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. The earth itself testified. Cain was cursed, not rejected forever, but marked. The ground would no longer yield for him. He would wander, restless. Fear entered Cain, not remorse, but fear of consequence. God placed a mark on him, not of shame, but of protection. Even the first murderer was not abandoned. Cain left, the presence of God faded from his life, but God did not disappear. Adam and Eve mourned, one son dead, one lost. Their grief was silent, heavy. Time moved on, humanity multiplied, and so did violence. Yet God remembered Abel. His blood was not forgotten. The cry from the ground became a symbol of injustice, of innocent suffering. Generations later, another blood would be shed, not in a field, but on a cross. That blood would speak louder than Abel's. It would not cry for vengeance, but for mercy. The first blood cried for justice. The final blood would bring forgiveness, from the first murder to the final sacrifice. God's plan unfolded. Because even when blood stains the ground, God hears and God remembers. When the world deserved to end, one man believed. The world had grown loud, not with music, but with violence. Every thought of the human heart leaned toward evil, not sometimes, but continually. The earth groaned beneath the weight of it. Blood soaked the soil, truth was forgotten, and kindness became rare. God looked upon what he had made, and grief filled his heart. Not because he had failed, but because humanity had chosen darkness. The breath he had given was now used for destruction. The hands formed for care were raised in cruelty, yet even in judgment, God searched for faith, and he found one man. His name was Noah. Noah lived quietly, faithfully, differently. While the world rushed toward corruption, Noah walked with God. He did not blend in. He did not follow the crowd. Obedience marked his life. Trust shaped his steps. God spoke to Noah, not with thunder, but with purpose. The end of all flesh has come before me. The earth is filled with violence. I will bring a flood, but you will be saved. Build an ark. The command made no sense to the world. Rain had not yet fallen. Floods were unknown, but faith does not require understanding, only obedience. Noah listened, and Noah believed. Day after day he worked, wood upon wood, beam upon beam. The ark rose slowly, massive, unmovable. People watched and laughed. Questions turned to mockery. Mockery turned to scorn. Why are you building? Where is the rain? Noah did not argue. He did not defend himself. His life preached louder than his words. Years passed, the ark stood ready. Then the day came. Animals arrived, not driven by fear, but by command. Pairs moved calmly, guided by a will greater than instinct. The door of the ark remained open. An invitation still stood, but the world did not enter. Then God shut the door, not Noah, God. The sky changed, clouds gathered, rain fell, at first lightly, then endlessly. The ground broke open, waters rose, panic followed. But too late, the ark lifted, carried by judgment, protected by grace. Inside there was safety, outside there, woe. As loss, the flood covered everything. Mountains disappeared, cities vanished. Silence replaced screams, life ended, but hope remained. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The ark floated, waiting. Then the rain stopped, waters slowly receded. A dove was sent, then sent again. Finally dry ground appeared. The ark rested. The door opened. Noah stepped out. The world was new, clean, quiet. God spoke again. I set my bow in the clouds, a covenant, a promise. Never again will I destroy the earth by flood. Judgment had passed, mercy remained. From one man who believed, the world continued. Faith saved humanity. And the story echoed forward. When judgment came again, another door would open. Another act of faith would save many. Because God always preserves a remnant, and belief still matters. The door God shut 8 souls against the storm. The sky had never looked like this before. Heavy, still, waiting. Noah stood before the ark, his hands rough from years of work, his heart steady, his faith tested and proven. Behind him his family waited. 8 souls, bound not only by blood, but by obedience. The world around them watched, some with confusion, some with anger, most with laughter. The ark stood massive, unnatural in a land that had never known rain, a silent witness to a warning ignored. For years Noah had spoken, not loudly, not violently, but faithfully. Judgment is coming, turn back, there is still time. But the world loved its violence, its pride, its corruption. They called Noah foolish, old, touch, yet he kept building. Every strike of wood, every lifted beam was an act of faith. He did not know how rain felt. He did not understand floods, but he trusted the voice of God. Then the day came. Animals arrived, not chased, not forced. They came calmly, 2 by 2, male and female. Lions walked beside lambs. Birds filled the air. Creatures crawled, slithered, moved without fear. The watching crowd grew silent. Something felt different. The door of the ark stood open. The invitation was still there. Anyone could have entered, but no one did. Then God spoke, and the door closed. No human hand moved it. No argument stopped it. God shut the door. Inside the ark, safety breathed. Outside, the world held its breath. The sky darkened. The first drop fell, soft, almost gentle. People looked up, curious. Then another, then another. Rain began to fall. Confusion spread. The ground grew wet. The air grew heavy. Rain did not stop. It fell without mercy, without pause. Streams overflowed. The earth cracked open. Water rose. Panic followed. The laughter turned to screams, the mockery to terror. People ran to the ark. They beat on the door. They shouted Noah's name. But the door did not open, not because Noah refused, but because God had sealed it. The water rose higher. Homes disappeared. Fields vanished. Strong men tried to swim. Mothers lifted children. But the water showed no favoritism. The ark lifted. Inside, fear met faith. The ark creaked. The storm roared. Waves crashed against the walls. Noah and S family held on. They prayed, they waited, they trusted. The storm lasted days, then weeks. Darkness surrounded them. Inside, animals rested, life continued. God remembered them. The rain stopped, silence followed. The waters remained, but the storm had passed. The ark floated, carried by grace. Days turned into months. Then one day the ark rested. Noah waited. He sent out a raven, then a dove. The dove returned, then left again. Finally it did not return. Hope stirred. The waters receded. Dry ground appeared. The door opened. The same door God had shut, God now opened. Noah stepped out. The air felt new. The earth clean. Life had been reset. Noah built an altar. He did not build a house first. He worshipped. God smelled the offering and made a promise. Never again. A rainbow appeared, not as decoration, but as covenant. Judgment had ended. Mercy remained. From 8 souls the world would grow again. The door God shut had saved them, and generations later another door would stand. Another warning would be given. Another choice offered, and again only faith would enter. Because salvation has always come through obedience, and the door God shuts, no one can open. But the door He opens, no one can close. Languages born from human pride, the flood was only a memory now, a story passed from fathers to sons, a warning spoken softly around fires at night. The earth was full again. Children laughed, fields spread wide, cities began to rise. Humanity had survived judgment, but had not learned humility. They spoke one language, shared one voice, moved with one purpose. At first it was beautiful. Unity brought strength. Cooperation built progress. People traveled east and found a wide plain, flat, open, perfect. They settled there, not because God had told them to, but because it pleased them. They said to one another, "Let us build a city. Let us make bricks. Let us rise." They baked bricks hard, stronger than stone. They used tar for mortar. Their hands worked tirelessly. Their minds burned with ambition. Then the true desire surfaced. Let us build a tower that reaches the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves. This was not about shelter, it was about legacy. They feared being scattered. They feared obedience. They feared losing control. God had commanded humanity to fill the earth, to spread, to steward. But they chose concentration over calling. The tower rose day by day, brick upon brick, level upon level. From the ground it looked glorious, a monument to human will. Songs were sung as they worked. Pride filled their voices. Look what we have built. Look how far we have come. They believed height meant greatness, that reaching upward meant equality with God. But heaven is not impressed by altitude. God looked down, not because He was threatened, but because He was concerned. Humanity had united, but not around truth. They were powerful, but not wise. If they continued, nothing they imagined would be restrained, not because they were divine, but because pride has no limits. God did not destroy the two. He did something far more subtle. He confused their language. Words lost meaning. Sounds changed. Understanding shattered. A command sounded like nonsense. A warning felt like insult. Brothers argued. Workers stopped. Confusion spread faster than cooperation. Anger replaced unity. Suspicion replaced trust. The work halted. They could no longer move together because they could no longer understand. Groups separated. Families divided. They scattered across the earth, just as God had commanded from the beginning. The tower stood unfinished, a monument not to greatness but to pride. They called the place Babel because their language was confused. Languages were born that day, not as punishment alone, but as limitation. Humanity was restrained, not crushed. God did not remove creativity, He redirected it. Cultures formed, nations rose, different words, different sounds, different stories. But the same longing remained, to reach heaven, to be known, to matter. Generations passed, languages multiplied, borders formed. Humanity still tried to build towers, different shapes, different materials. Some built with stone, some with power, some with wealth, still trying to reach God without submission. Then one day, in a small room, a sound filled the air, not confusion, but clarity. Tongues of fire appeared, and languages were spoken. But this time, everyone understood. not because words were removed, but because hearts were united. At Pentecost, God did not erase languages, He redeemed them. What pride had divided, the Spirit united. The story of Babel was not the end, it was a lesson. Human pride scatters, divine purpose gathers. The tower fell, but God's plan continued, because heaven is not reached by bricks, but by humility. And the God who once confused languages would one day speak to every nation, in words they could understand. The night God spoke to a wandering man. The night was quiet, not empty, but wide. Stars stretched across the sky like silent witnesses, cold light resting on a land still unfamiliar. Abram walked alone. His feet were dusty from travel, his heart heavier than his body. He had obeyed a voice he could not see, left a land he loved, left family, left certainty, all because God had spoken. Leave your country, your people, your father's house. Go to the land I will show you. There had been no map, no explanation, only a promise. I will make you into a great nation. Years had passed since that call, miles walked, altars built, prayers spoken, yet one thing remained painfully empty. Abram had no son. The promise felt distant, almost cruel in the silence. That night he lay down beneath the open sky, no tent, no walls, just earth below, heaven above. His thoughts would not rest. What if I misunderstood? What if the promise was never meant for me? Fear whispered louder than faith. Then the presence came, not with thunder, not with fire, but with certainty. The word of the Lord came to Abram. Do not be afraid. Those words entered his heart like warmth. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. Abram spoke honestly, not with polished prayer, but raw truth. What can you give me, since I remain childless? He named the pain, the unanswered years. A servant will inherit my house. God did not rebuke him. He listened. Then God spoke again. This man will not be your heir. A son from your own body will come. God led Abram outside. Look up at the sky, count the stars. Abram lifted his eyes. The stars were countless. So shall your offspring be. Something shifted inside him, not understanding, but trust. Abram believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. God continued, I am the Lord who brought you out to give you this land. Abram asked again, still honest, how will I know? God did not scold him. Instead, he invited him into covenant. Animals were brought, cut, laid opposite each other. A path formed between them. Abram waited. As the sun set, a deep sleep fell on him. Darkness pressed in. Then God spoke of the future. Your descendants will be strangers, they will suffer, but I will deliver them. The promise was larger than Abram. It stretched through generations. A smoking firepot and a blazing torch passed between the pieces. God alone walked the covenant, because the promise did not depend on Abram's strength. That night ended, but the journey continued. Years passed, still no child. Sarai grew older, hope thinner. She offered her servant, trying to help God. Ishmael was born, but Ishmael was not the promise. Time continued to test faith. Then one day, God appeared again. Abram was now Abraham, Sarai was now Sarah. Names changed, destiny declared. At this time next year, Sarah will have a son. They laughed, not in mockery, but disbelief. Yet God remains steady. Is anything too hard for the Lord? The child came, Isaac, laughter fulfilled. But the journey was not finished. One night, God tested Abraham. Take your son, your only son, whom you love. Go to the mountain, sacrifice him. The command pierced deeper than the stars ever had. Yet Abraham obeyed, step by step, up the mountain. Isaac asked, where is the lamb? Abraham answered, God will provide. At the altar, knife raised, God stopped him. Now I know. A ram appeared, caught by its horns. Provision replaced sacrifice. The promise stood firm. Years later, Abraham died, not seeing the nation, but believing it. The stars still shone. The covenant still lived. The night God spoke had shaped history because one wandering man believed, and faith moved generations forward, faith that raised the knife and trusted God. The morning was quiet, not a whisper of wind, not a single bird stirred. Only the cold light of dawn touched the earth. Abraham rose from sleep, his heart heavy, his mind restless. He had heard the voice of God, and it had commanded him to do what no father ever wanted to do. Take your son, your only son, whom you love, offer him as a burnt offering. The words had not shaken him at first, because faith does not rely on understanding. But as the morning came, and Isaac laughed and played, the weight prayers said deeper. Abraham looked at the boy, small, innocent, unaware, and yet he knew he must obey. He spoke to Isaac. We are going on a journey. We will worship God there and return. Isaac followed without question, trusting the Father, trusting the voice of God that had led them before. The two walked, step by step, up the mountain. Abraham carried the wood. The knife rested at his side, every step heavy, every thought a struggle. But the obedience was clear. Faith spoke louder than the fear. They reached the place God had shown. The altar was built, stone upon stone, precise and deliberate, a place of meeting between heaven and earth. Abraham bound his son, not because he wanted to, but because God had commanded. Faith demanded the obedience of love, even when it tore the heart. Isaac looked into the eyes of his father. No words were needed. The bond was stronger than fear. Trust ran deeper than understanding. Abraham raised the knife. The moment stretched. Time seemed to hold its breath. The wind paused. The birds hushed. Even the sun seemed to wait. Then the voice of God spoke again. Do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Abraham looked up. Relief washed over him. He had obeyed fully. Faith had been tested and proven true. A ram appeared, caught in the thicket. God provided, not as an afterthought, but as a sign of mercy. Abraham offered the ram instead of his son. The smoke rose, a fragrant offering to God. Faith had triumphed over fear. God spoke again, because he saw the obedience of the heart. I swear, by myself, because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, I will bless you. I will multiply your descendants. They will be as numerous as the stars, and they will possess the gates of their enemies. Abraham and Isaac walked down the mountain, the weight of obedience still heavy, but the joy of trust and faith stronger. The lesson lived beyond that day, not only for Abraham, but for generations to come. Faith is not blind. It is the choice to trust the voice of God, even when the command is unbearable, even when the path seems impossible. Time moved forward. Isaac grew. Abraham saw the promise begin to unfold. Descendants born, nations formed, a people chosen. Because one man believed, the story echoed through history, through prophets, through kings, through all who would come to hear the call of God. Faith that obeys, faith that trusts, faith that offers the most precious without hesitation. This is the faith that changes destinies. And even today, the mountain stands as a symbol of the place where obedience and love meet, where God tests and provides, because the God who commands also sees and provides, and the faith that raises the knife will never be forgotten. A stairway seen only by the broken. Jacob walked alone. The night was still, the earth cold beneath his feet. Fear pressed against his heart, and shame weighed heavier. He had fled his home, fled from his brother, stolen what was not rightfully his, and now the world felt uncertain, the future unclear. Every step was haunted by the past, every memory a reminder of deceit, every shadow seemed to whisper judgment. Jacob found a place to sleep, a stone for a pillow, no comfort, no walls, only the sky, vast, unforgiving, yet full of silent possibility. As he lay down, a strange vision appeared, a ladder stretched from earth to heaven, its top reaching the endless sky. Angels moved up and down, silent, glorious, unseen by anyone else, yet entirely real. And above it, God stood. Or perhaps he was everywhere. The presence was unmistakable. It filled the night. It pressed gently upon Jacob's heart. God spoke, not with thunder, not with demand, but with promise. I am the Lord God of your father Abraham and Isaac. The land you lie on I will give to you and your descendants. Your offspring will be like the dust of the earth. They will spread far and wide, and through you all nations will be blessed." Jacob trembled, not only with fear, but with hope. He realized he was alone, but not abandoned. He had run from family, from honor, from safety, yet God had found him and had given him a vision no one else could see. Jacob asked, "What shall I do? How can I be sure?" God gave no checklist, no detailed instructions, only reassurance. "I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go. I will not leave you until all is fulfilled." The ladder vanished, the angels disappeared, but the certainty remained. Jacob knew he had touched heaven. He knew the world was not beyond hope. He woke at dawn, the cold air biting, the stone beneath him hard, yet his heart was lighter. He poured oil on the stone, set it as a pillar, a marker for the place where heaven met earth, where a man once wrestled fear and found God. Jacob named the place Bethel, house of God. He vowed, if God would be with him, if God would watch over him, then all that he had fled from, all that he feared would be restored. Jacob continued his journey, the weight of deceit still pressing, but now tempered by faith. He wrestled again, not with angels at first, but with himself, with fear, with guilt, with the memories of wrongs committed. Night fell once more, and Jacob wrestled a figure, a man, or perhaps God himself. They fought until the dawn, muscles strained, spirit tested, pain pressed every nerve. The figure touched Jacob and blessed him, no longer Jacob, but Israel, one who struggles with God and prevails. He limped from that encounter, yet walked with a new strength, a new name, a new destiny. Jacob returned home, not to avoid confrontation, but to face it, to reconcile, to restore. His brother Esau ran to meet him, and forgiveness was offered. Peace prevailed. The ladder Jacob had seen was not just a vision, it was a lesson. Faith rises where fear presses down. Promises exist even when the world seems against you. Angels move unseen, and God keeps his word. Generations would remember the place where a broken man slept and found a stairway to heaven. Because the God who reveals himself to the fearful also restores the lost, and the house of God is not built of stone alone. It is built in hearts that believe, hearts that rest, hearts that trust despite brokenness. Jacob and Esau, brothers divided, brothers reunited. The sun was low, shadows stretched across the land. The air carried the scent of dust and animals. Jacob walked carefully, every step measured, every sound watched. He had been away for many years, a life built on fear and deception, a stolen blessing, a stolen birthright, a family torn by his own hands. The memory haunted him. He remembered the day, the trickery, the fear in his mother's eyes, the anger in his brother's voice, the threat he had fled from. Now he was returning, older, wiser, still unsure, still afraid. Behind him lay a life of wandering, fields he had tilled, cattle he had raised, wealth he had earned, but none of it could settle the storm inside. The night came. Darkness stretched across the path. Jacob prepared for what he must face. He divided his people, his flocks, into two groups, hoping if one was attacked, the other might survive. He prayed, not with loud words, but silently, pouring out his heart to God. "I am afraid, but you have promised. You said you would be with me." As he prayed, a figure appeared, alone, struggling. Not with Jacob, but within him. They wrestled through the night, no rest, no surrender, until the dawn light touched the horizon. The man spoke, not with anger, but authority. "Let me go, for the day is breaking." Jacob would not release him until a blessing was given. Then the touch, the hip struck. Jacob limped, yet he stood firm. "Your name shall be Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed." The blessing was spoken, not as a reward alone, but as preparation. Jacob limped forward, weaker in body, stronger in spirit. The dawn broke. The day he would meet Esau had come. He sent gifts ahead, precautions made, every detail considered, yet The fear remained as he saw his brother approaching. With 400 men, a force of strength and history, Jacob bowed. He could not know the heart of the one he had wronged. Esau ran. Not with anger, but with emotion too deep for words. He embraced his brother, falling on his neck, kissing him. Jacob wept, the years of fear and guilt released in that one moment. Esau looked at the flocks, the gifts, the careful plans, and refused them. All that mattered was his brother, restoration of what had been broken, forgiveness offered, trust rebuilt. Jacob stood, not triumphant, not boastful, but humble. The brothers walked together, talking, sharing, restoring the bond torn long ago. Jacob realized the stolen blessing had been replaced by a greater gift, reconciliation, peace. Years later, Jacob would look back on that day, not as the day of fear, but as the day God proved faithful. Two brothers divided by sin, united by mercy, united by the God who watches and restores. Every step of the journey, every act of trust, every prayer in silence, all led to this, a reunion, a restoration, and the legacy of Jacob and Esau was not only inheritance, but the example of forgiveness, of reconciliation, of God keeping his promises, because the God who watches also heals, the God who divides also restores, the God who tests also provides peace. The story of brothers, broken and mended, lives on as a stairway, from fear to faith, from division to unity. Joseph's coat of many colors from pit to palace. The sun rose over the hills, casting golden light on green valleys. Joseph ran across the fields, his coat of many colors flowing behind him, a gift from his father, a symbol of favor, a sign of love. His brothers watched, hidden among the wheat and vines, eyes burning with jealousy, hearts heavy with resentment. Every stitch of that coat reminded them of what they lacked, of what they believed they deserved. Joseph did not see their hatred. He saw only his father, only the promise of God, only the dreams he carried in his heart. He dreamed boldly. He spoke of stars and sheaves bowing to him, of the sun and the moon recognizing his place. These dreams were seeds, but they fell on bitter soil. His brothers could not wait. Hatred grew into action. They seized him, stripped him of the coat, and cast him into a pit. The earth swallowed him. Darkness pressed against his face. Fear whispered lies into his mind. But Joseph did not curse. He did not speak of revenge. He prayed silently, and he remembered the voice of God, the promise his father had given, the destiny that had been spoken. A caravan appeared, trading camels and goods. They drew Joseph from the pit, sold him into slavery, the first step of a journey he did not yet understand. Egypt was vast, unfamiliar, dangerous, and yet it would become the place where his faith was tested, where his character was forged, where God would reveal his plan. Joseph served in the house of Potiphar, a man of authority, a man of pride. Joseph's work was diligent, his heart faithful, his hands skilled. God blessed everything he touched, but temptation came, false accusations, betrayal. He was thrown into prison, the walls cold, the darkness deeper than any pit, loneliness pressing hard against his spirit. Still, Joseph did not curse. He did not abandon faith. He served the keeper of the prison. He interpreted dreams. He spoke truth when others could only hope. He trusted God quietly, steadily, without demand or question. Years passed. Chains could not break his spirit. Time could not diminish the promise. The dreams in his heart whispered continually. The visions of destiny persisted. Then Pharaoh dreamed, a troubling vision. No one could explain. No one could provide comfort. Joseph was called before the ruler, before the throne, before the land of Egypt. He listened. He interpreted, not with pride, but with humility. God revealed the meaning of the dreams. 7 years of abundance, 7 years of famine. Pharaoh saw wisdom in Joseph, not only understanding, but foresight, not only skill but faith. He was made ruler, second only to Pharaoh, a shepherd of Egypt, a guardian of life itself. Joseph did not forget the pit, he did not forget the prison. He remembered every betrayal, every act of jealousy, every moment of fear. Then the famine came, and the land of Canaan suffered. His brothers arrived, bowing without knowing, seeking grain, blind to the presence of their brother. Joseph watched, silent, measuring, testing, and when the time was right, he revealed himself. Tears fell, he wept openly. Forgiveness spoken before accusation, mercy offered before demand. He remembered God and allowed love to prevail. The coat of many colors, once a symbol of jealousy, now a symbol of survival, faith, forgiveness. The family reunited, moved to Egypt, protected by Joseph's wisdom, sustained by God's plan. Years later, Joseph would stand, not with bitterness, not with pride, but with gratitude for the pit that taught patience, the prison that taught endurance, the journey that revealed God's hand, from pit to palace, from betrayal to forgiveness, from dreams to destiny. The story of Joseph endures, a reminder that faith persists, even in darkness, even when hope seems distant. God's plan is greater, and the coat of many colors is a tapestry of trials, blessings, and the enduring power of trust. Joseph in Egypt. God's plan through suffering. Joseph walked through the streets of Egypt, the sun beating down on the stones, a stranger in a strange land, yet his heart clung to a promise, a vision given in youth, a destiny whispered by God. He remembered the pit, the betrayal of his brothers, the darkness pressing in, the despair of slavery. But he also remembered the coat, a symbol of love, a symbol of hope, the dreams that had set his heart on fire. He served in the house of Potiphar, every dar. Why diligent, every task completed with care, faith guiding his hands, God blessing his efforts. The master saw wisdom, he saw skill, he saw character, and Joseph rose, task after task, responsibility increasing, trust growing. Then temptation came, a test of the heart, the wife of his master, her words soft but powerful, a trap for pride, a snare for desire. Joseph refused, not loudly, not with defiance, but with integrity, faithfulness guiding every choice. He fled the house, yet false accusation followed him. Betrayal repeated. A man faithful was thrown into prison. The walls were cold, darkness suffocating, chains biting into flesh. Yet Joseph's spirit remained free. He trusted. He served. He observed. He waited. In prison, he met men, the cupbearer, the baker, both troubled by dreams. Joseph interpreted, not boasting, not claiming wisdom, but speaking the truth given by God. The cupbearer was restored. The baker was judged. The passage of time tested patience. Faith sustained hope. Years passed, no word from freedom, no sign from God, yet Joseph did not waver. Then Pharaoh dreamed, no one could interpret, the land of Egypt trembling, hunger approaching. Joseph was called before the throne, the ruler of Egypt, all eyes on him, fear in the room, faith in his heart. He listened carefully, he interpreted truth. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, advice followed with wisdom, provision planned with foresight. Pharaoh saw not only skill, not only intelligence, but the hand of God in this man. Joseph was elevated, second to Pharaoh. Master of Egypt, savior of the land. The famine came, as Joseph had said. The world beyond Egypt suffered. His own family traveled to Egypt, seeking grain, not knowing the brother they had betrayed. Joseph saw them. He recognized them. He observed quietly. He did not reveal himself immediately. He tested their hearts. He sought repentance and humility. Days passed. Then Joseph spoke. The moment of revelation. Tears and astonishment. Forgiveness given. Mercy extended. Reunion celebrated. He remembered the pit, the chains, the betrayal, the suffering. All had prepared him. All had revealed God's plan. Joseph said to his brothers, "Do not be afraid. God sent me before you to preserve life, not to punish. God used what you meant for harm, for good, to save many people." His words echoed the truth. Suffering had a purpose, pain had meaning, faith had reward. Joseph's life became a bridge between past betrayal and future salvation, between despair and hope, between human weakness and divine purpose. Years later, he would see the fulfillment of God's promise. Children protected, family reunited, Egypt preserved. Through it all, Joseph understood. God's plan is not always clear, it is not always easy. It may involve pain, it may involve waiting, it may involve darkness, but the hand of God moves, even when unseen, even when faith is tested, even when hope feels distant. Joseph in Egypt was more than a story. It was a testament, a living example, that suffering is not meaningless, that trials are not wasted, that God works through every event, every betrayal, every prison, every heartache, from the pit to the palace, from slavery to sovereignty, from pain to purpose. Joseph endured, Joseph trusted, Joseph forgave. And in the life of one man, the promise of God unfolded, revealing that what seems broken can be used to save, what seems lost can become a blessing, what seems cruel can fulfill a divine plan. Fire in a bush that changed history. The desert stretched endlessly, sand and rock under the scorching sun. The wind moved slowly, carrying the dry scent of earth, and a man walked alone. Moses tended sheep, simple tasks, ordinary life, yet his heart longed for more, something greater than survival, something deeper than routine. The flame appeared suddenly, not consuming the bush, not destroying the tree, yet fire moved and danced, strange, impossible, demanding attention. Moses stopped, his eyes widened, curiosity overcame caution. He approached, wondering how a bush could burn and yet remain untouched. God called from the bush, not with thunder, not with anger, but with authority, with purpose, with presence. Moses fell to the ground, fear and awe entwined. The voice spoke again, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Moses trembled. The weight of history pressed upon him. He had not known he would meet God today. He had not expected a calling so great. God told him, "Remove your sandals. You are standing on holy ground." The fire burned, yet the bush was not consumed. A symbol, a mystery, a revelation. The presence of God can transform without destruction. God spoke of suffering, of his people enslaved, of cries rising to heaven, the oppressors unyielding, the chains of injustice tight. He called Moses, not as a leader, not as a warrior, but as a deliverer. "Go to Pharaoh, bring my people out of Egypt." Moses protested, not because he feared God, but because he feared himself. "I am not eloquent. I am not strong. Who am I to face Pharaoh?" God reassured, "I will be with you. I will give you the words. I will show you the power." Moses asked, "What if they do not believe me? What if they do not listen?" God showed signs, staff into serpent, hand leprous then healed, water into blood. Even miracles cannot replace trust. Even wonders cannot replace obedience. Moses accepted, not instantly, not without hesitation, but he stepped forward, carrying the burden of a nation, carrying the voice of God. The fire in the bush was more than fire. It was a call, a challenge, a revelation. The invisible became visible. The ordinary became holy. As Moses returned to Egypt, the flame remained in his memory, not burning, not fading, but alive in his heart. The confrontation with Pharaoh began, the journey through plagues, the liberation of a people, the crossing of a sea, the guidance through desert sands, all began in a moment of awe, a flame that did not consume, a voice that demanded trust, a calling that transformed a shepherd into a leader. The fire taught Moses that God works through ordinary things, that obedience changes history, that faith requires courage, That presence is more powerful than might. Generations would remember the fire in the bush, a moment when a man met God, a moment when one life altered the course of many, a moment when heaven touched earth, because the God who calls chooses the humble, the fearful, the ordinary, and through them changes the night Egypt cried while Israel walked free. The night was dark, heavier than any before. Silence pressed over Egypt, but it was not peaceful. Every household trembled. Fear whispered in every corner. A nation held its breath, the air thick with mourning. Inside homes, grief clung, parents wept, children cried. The firstborn lay still. The plague had come, not slowly, not silently, but with sudden, unbearable force. God had warned Pharaoh, yet pride had hardened the heart. Commands had been ignored. The cries of the oppressed had reached heaven, but the ruler refused to yield. The Israelites prepared, every family marked, lambs slain, blood applied carefully, doors watched, steps calculated. They waited, not knowing exactly what would happen, but trusting the promise, faith carved into their hearts. The firstborn fell silent, from the palace to the huts of the poor, from Pharaoh's house to the homes of slaves. The nation grieved, the streets empty, the air filled with sorrow, no laughter, no song, only mourning. But the Israelites moved quietly, carefully, obediently. They carried belongings, children, animals, bread baked without yeast, all in preparation, all in faith. The night stretched, long, oppressive. Yet inside the homes of Israel, hope glimmered. Pharaoh called, but the cries had already begun. He did not understand. He had ignored God. He had resisted freedom. In the morning, Pharaoh rose, not in joy, but in loss. The nation of Egypt mourned. The firstborn were gone. The land held its breath, and the God of Israel delivered. Moses led the people, not as a general, not as a king, but as a shepherd, guided by the hand of God. They moved swiftly, no turning back. The Red Sea awaited, the desert stretched wide, freedom within reach. The Egyptians pursued, pride and power still burning, arrogance demanding control. But the God who delivers had already planned. The waters stood as a wall, silent, formidable, a miracle waiting, faith meeting obedience. The people crossed, not with weapons, not with armies, but with trust. The hand of God separating waters, creating a path, delivering life. The pursuers followed, and the waters returned. The sea closed, not in punishment alone, but as justice, as salvation realized. The Israelites walked free, not because of strength, not because of strategy, but because God had chosen them. Because obedience meets provision. The desert was harsh, yet hope carried them. Faith guided every step, every camp, every prayer. They carried memories of slavery, of loss, of cries rising to heaven, but also of deliverance, of the night Egypt cried, of the dawn that brought freedom. Generations would remember the story of the first Passover, the night of sorrow and hope intertwined, a lesson in obedience, a testament to the power of faith. The God who delivers, who sees suffering, who responds to cries, is the same God who guides today. The night Egypt cried was the night Israel walked free, and the story echoes that even in darkness, God's hand moves, and freedom is born through faith. World forever. Moses and the sea that opened a path. The desert stretched endlessly, sand and stone under a blazing sun. The Israelites walked wearily, fleeing Egypt, carrying memories of slavery. Fear still pressed against their hearts, yet hope burned quietly. Moses led them, a shepherd turned deliverer, chosen by God, carrying promises heavier than any staff, guiding a people toward freedom. Behind them, the Egyptians pursued, chariots pounding the sand, pride and anger driving the army, determined to reclaim what they had lost. Blind to the power of God, blind to the hand that moves unseen, the people panicked. Voices rose in fear. We are trapped. Better to return. Better to die in Egypt than face the unknown. Moses spoke, not with force, not with threat, but with faith. Stand still, watch, see the salvation of the Lord. God commanded, lift your staff, stretch your hand over the sea. Moses obeyed, his hands trembling, heart pounding, but his spirit steady. Faith met fear in the quiet of obedience. The waters responded, not with struggle, not with noise, but with wonder. A path opened. Walls of water rose, silent and vast, a way through the impossible. The Israelites moved, step by step, feet on dry ground, faith carrying them forward. No turning back, no wavering. The Egyptians pursued. The waves stood tall, silent guardians, a path that only those called could walk. The people crossed, Moses in the lead, staff raised, eyes lifted, trust unwavering. The last step was taken, and God acted. The waters returned, the army swallowed, power destroyed, not by men, but by the hand of God. The Israelites stood, breathless, a nation reborn, saved not by might, not by numbers, but by faith, by obedience, by trust in the unseen. Moses lifted his voice, a song of praise, a song of remembrance. The people echoed, their voices rising, carrying gratitude, trust, faith renewed. The journey continued, through desert sands, through trials, through hunger and thirst, but the memory of the sea remained, a reminder that God fights for those who trust, that salvation comes not by human strength, but by divine power. Generations would remember the path through the sea, the hand that parted waters, the faith that guided a people from slavery to freedom. Even today, the story speaks to hearts trapped, to those fleeing fear, to those standing before impossible walls. Faith opens paths, obedience carries forward, God moves, and freedom is given to those who trust, bread that fell from heaven. Every morning, the wilderness stretched endlessly, dust and stone under a scorching sun. The Israelites wandered, tired, hungry, weary from journey and fear, yet carrying hope that God would provide. They had seen plagues destroy Egypt. They had crossed seas on dry ground. They had felt the hand of God move. Yet human hearts struggle with doubt, and hunger gnawed at patience. Moses led them, a shepherd chosen by God, a guide through deserts, a teacher of trust, a voice of faith. The people complained, not with anger, but with despair. Why did you bring us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness where there is nothing to eat? Moses heard, not only the words, but the weight behind them. He lifted his eyes, he prayed, and God responded. The voice spoke, I will rain bread from heaven. Every morning, the people will gather enough. Every day, trust me. The first morning came, a fine flake fell, soft, white, sweet, unknown before. Manna from heaven, a gift, a miracle visible to all. The people gathered, some hoarded, some doubted, some trusted. God spoke again. Gather only enough for the day. Do not save it for tomorrow. Trust in my provision. The pattern continued. Every morning, bread fell from the sky. Daily obedience, daily faith, daily dependence on God. On the sixth day, twice as much fell, to prepare for the Sabbath, a day of rest, a day of trust, a day of remembering. God's provision is constant, even when human effort fails. The wilderness became a classroom, every meal a lesson, every gathering a chance to trust, every disappointment an opportunity to obey. The people began to understand that life is sustained not by human hands alone, but by divine care, that obedience is more than rules. It is trusting the unseen, walking by faith, relying on God for every need. Moses guided, not with anger, not with harshness, but with patience, teaching the people to gather, teaching them to trust, teaching them to follow God's voice. The bread from heaven became more than food. It became a symbol of God's faithfulness, of daily provision, of love that does not fail. Years would pass, the Israelites would wander, they would face trials, they would face hunger, they would face fear. Yet the memory remained, bread that fell from heaven every morning, a lesson written into their souls. Trust before seeing, obedience before understanding, faith before comfort. Even today, the story speaks to hearts afraid, to those who doubt, to those wandering in deserts of uncertainty. God provides, God sustains, God teaches, and daily bread is more than food. It is a sign of love, a reminder that the Creator watches, a call to trust, a proof that obedience brings life. The wilderness was harsh, the journey was long, yet every morning bread fell from heaven, and hearts learned to believe, water from the rock that quenched a nation. The desert stretched endlessly, the sun beat down, heat pressed against every stone. Every step was heavy, every breath a struggle. The Israelites walked, weary from journey, hungry from travel. Thirst pressed hard against their hearts, and doubt whispered in their ears. They remembered Egypt, the plagues, the freedom, the miracles. Yet human memory is short, and fear grows faster than faith. They gathered around Moses, voices rising. "Why did you bring us out? To die in this wilderness? There is no water, nothing to drink." Moses lifted his eyes, not in anger, not in impatience, but in prayer. Faith and intercession joined in one heart. God spoke, "Take your staff, assemble the people, strike the rock, water will flow, and the people will drink." Moses obeyed, even though his heart trembled, even though doubt pressed in. He gathered the elders, he led the people to the rock. He struck once, water gushed forth, life flowed from stone, thirst quenched, faith renewed, miracle visible to all. The people drank, they rejoiced, they praised, not only for water, but for the proof that God provides, even in places dry and barren. The rock became a symbol, not of power alone, but of obedience, trust, faith in action. The journey continued, the desert still harsh, the sun still blazing, yet the people carried hope, because the memory of water from the rock remained, even when hunger returned, even when fear pressed, even when challenges seemed impossible. They remembered faith produces provision, obedience brings life, trust unlocks miracles. Moses guided them through trials and doubt, through rebellion and complaint. Every rock, every river, every oasis became a lesson. God sustains, God provides, God teaches through trials. The story was repeated, shared around fires, sung in camps, passed to children, a testimony of faith, a reminder that even stone yields life. When struck by obedience, when approached with trust, generations would remember water from the rock, a miracle in the desert, a lesson written into the hearts of a people, that God's care is constant, that provision comes in unexpected ways, that faith turns impossibility into reality. Even today, the story speaks to those in dry places, to those facing impossible odds, to hearts parched with fear. God can provide, even when all seems lost, even when the world is harsh. The rock yielded water, faith yielded life, obedience unlocked provision, and the God who moves in deserts still moves today, turning stone into streams, turning fear into trust, turning dryness into abundance. Thunder, fire, and a law written by God. The mountain rose above the clouds, its peak hidden, its slope steep and foreboding. The air was cold, thin, and carried the scent of stone and wind. Moses climbed alone, his heart heavy, his mind filled with anticipation. The people below waited, not understanding, not fully trusting, yet desperate for guidance. God had called him to bring a law, to give a nation instruction, to shape a people into a covenant, a reflection of divine order. As Moses reached the summit, the mountain shook, thunder rolled across the sky, flames danced, lightning split the air, smoke rose like incense, and the presence of God filled every crevice of the rock. The people below trembled, fear pressed against their hearts. They had seen wonders, they had crossed seas, They had witnessed plagues, yet the mountain commanded awe. It demanded reverence. God spoke, not with softness, not with compromise, but with authority, with power, with clarity. Samuel hears the voice that calls a nation. The night was quiet. The lamp flickered in the small room. Shadows danced across the walls, and a boy lay on his bed, eyes wide open, heart restless, wondering what the future might hold. Samuel had been dedicated to the Lord by his mother. Hannah had prayed for a child, promised that if her prayers were answered, he would serve God all his life. Now Samuel lived in the house of Eli, the priest, learning, watching, serving. Yet the voice of God was still a mystery, a sound that could be trusted, a word that could be followed. Night after night, Samuel slept near the ark, the presence of God near, yet silent, still. Then one night, the voice called, "Samuel," he answered, "Here I am." But Eli said, "I did not call you, go back to sleep." Again the voice called, "Samuel." Again he answered. And again Eli said, "I did not call you." The third time it happened, Eli realized it was God calling the boy. He instructed Samuel, "Go lie down. If you hear the voice, answer, speak, listen carefully." Samuel obeyed, and the Lord spoke, revealing plans for the nation, judgment for corruption, a warning to the house of Eli, a prophecy of what must come. Samuel trembled, not with fear alone, but with awe. The weight of responsibility pressed. A boy chosen to speak for God, to a nation in need, to a people wandering from truth. Morning came, and Samuel arose. The boy was changed, not by age, not by learning, but by the encounter with God, faithful, humble, listening. Samuel became a prophet, a voice of warning, a voice of guidance for kings, for priests, for the people of Israel. Every word he spoke carried weight. Every action reflected obedience. The nation listened, not always gladly, not always willingly, but the voice of God moved through him. Years passed. The people remembered the boy who heard in the night, the lamp flickering, the voice calling, the moment that changed everything. Samuel's life was not easy. The burden of speaking truth, of confronting corruption, of guiding kings was heavy, yet he remained faithful. The story teaches God calls those who listen. Faith requires obedience. Even the young can carry responsibility. Even silence can be filled with purpose. Even a boy can shape a nation. The voice of God is patient, repeated, persistent. Yet only those who answer, those who respond with readiness, those who obey, will see the full purpose unfold. Samuel listened, Samuel obeyed, and a nation was guided, not by power alone, not by might, but by the voice of God, a lamp in the darkness, a boy hearing the call. A reminder that faith begins with listening. David faces Goliath, faith over fear. The sun rose over the valley, light spilled across the stones. The Philistine army stood, formidable, armored, proud, and mocking the people of Israel. David arrived, a shepherd boy, young, untrained in battle, small in stature, yet his heart was steady, filled with faith, not in sword, not in strength, but in God. The giant Goliath taunted, his voice echoing, mocking, threatening, demanding a champion, a warrior to face him in combat, a test of courage, a test of the nation's faith. The Israelite soldiers trembled. They saw the size, the armor, the weapons, and fear gripped their hearts. But David saw differently. He saw opportunity. He saw God's power. He saw the truth that the battle belongs not to the strong, but to the one who trusts. David approached King Saul. He refused armor. He refused sword. Only 5 smooth stones in his pouch. Only a sling in his hand. Only faith in God. Saul doubted. Yet David explained, "I have defended my sheep from lions and bears. The Lord who delivered me then will deliver me now." Faith is stronger than fear. Trust is sharper than weapons. David stepped into the valley. Goliath laughed, mocking the boy, believing strength alone wins. Yet David did not waver. He called to Goliath, "I come in the name of the Lord, not with sword, not with spear, but with faith." He placed a stone in his sling, whirled it around, the motion precise, the aim steady. The stone flew, it struck the giant, center of forehead. Goliath fell, the earth shook with his collapse. Silence followed, then awe. The Israelites charged, the Philistines fled. Victory was won, not by armies, not by experience, not by strategy, but by faith, by trust in God, by courage against fear. David became a symbol, a shepherd boy who trusted God, a reminder that faith outweighs power, that courage comes from obedience, that God fights for those who believe. The story echoed through generations, taught to children, sung by prophets, remembered by kings, a testament to what can happen when faith meets challenge, when trust overcomes fear. Even today, the valley stands as a lesson. Strength is not in size, victory is not in weapons. Faith conquers the impossible. God uses the humble, God honors the obedient. David faced Goliath, not with sword or shield, but with faith, and the giant fell, proving that the power of God, through one willing heart, surpasses any obstacle, any fear, any challenge, and the people learned that the unseen hand of God can bring down giants and lift up the faithful. David crowned king from shepherd to ruler. The hills of Bethlehem glowed with the soft light of morning. The sheep grazed quietly. The wind whispered through the valleys, and David tended his flock, young, strong, faithful, unaware that his life was about to change. He had been anointed by Samuel, a chosen one, hidden among brothers. Yet God had seen his heart, and the Spirit had come upon him, marking him for a destiny far beyond fields and sheep. For years David served, humble, obedient, learning courage from the wilderness, patience from tending flocks, wisdom from walking with God. But the path to the throne was not simple. King Saul ruled Israel, anointed by God, yet plagued by jealousy, fear, a spirit of darkness that whispered suspicion. The heart of a king turned against the one chosen. David fled, he wandered, he hid, yet he never lost faith. He did not strike back, he did not seize power by force, he trusted God's timing. He lived among straw, Engers, he protected villages, he led small armies, he sang to God, and the people began to see the favor of the Lord upon him. Years passed, the name of David spread, stories of courage, stories of faith, stories of battles fought and won, not by might alone, but by trust in God. At the same time, King Saul's heart grew darker. His suspicion turned to hatred. He pursued David, but David spared Saul's life, not once, but twice. Even when given opportunity, he refused to harm the one anointed by God. Faith guiding every choice, mercy shaping every action. David's patience was tested. The wilderness was harsh, enemies surrounded him, allies scarce, yet he remained humble. He did not rush, he did not claim what was not yet his. Then the time came. King Saul died, the throne was open, the people turned to David. They saw the anointed, the faithful shepherd, the man who had trusted God, who had walked with courage, who had led with integrity. David was crowned king, the anointed of the Lord, a shepherd who became a ruler, a man whose heart remained with God, even as he ruled a nation. The people rejoiced, enemies subdued, the land united, a dynasty begun, a line of kings that would shape Israel and ultimately bring forth the Messiah. David's reign was not without challenge. Wars were fought, rebellions rose, mistakes were made, yet he repented. He returned to God, he sought guidance, and God remained with him. The story of David teaches that faith is patient, that obedience is rewarded, that integrity preserves even when threatened, that God's timing is perfect, and the humble are exalted. From shepherd to king, David's life was a testament to trust, to patience, to courage, to the unseen hand of God, shaping a nation, guiding a heart, building a legacy. Even today, the story speaks to those who wait, to those who serve in silence, to those who endure trials. Faithful hearts are chosen, obedient lives are honored, and the God who anoints will lift up the humble, turning shepherds into kings and ordinary lives into history. Loyalty that changed a family's destiny. Elkanah lived in Ramah, a man devoted to God. He had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah, and his heart longed for a child, a son who would continue the family line, a son who would bring hope and joy. Hannah loved deeply, but she was barren. Her heart ached silently. She watched Peninnah bear children, felt the sting of shame, and yet she remained faithful, trusting God, even in sorrow, even in longing. Every year, the family went to Shiloh to offer sacrifices, to seek the favor of God, to pour out hearts in prayer. Hannah wept silently, her lips moving in whispers, prayers of desperation, prayers of faith, prayers that she would one day hold a child of promise. Eli the priest watched, noticing her lips moving, but no sound coming forth. He asked her, "How long will you continue?" "Drunk with sorrow," Hannah explained. "Not drunk. My heart is heavy. I have poured out my soul to God." She made a vow, "If God grants a son, I will dedicate him to the Lord all his life. He will serve in the temple, his I for testimony of faith and devotion." God heard. God responded. In time, a son was born. She named him Samuel. He grew strong. God blessed him, and he became a child devoted to divine purpose. When the time came, Hannah honored her vow. She brought Samuel to Shiloh and left him in the service of God, a mother's heart both breaking and trusting. Yet she knew loyalty to God mattered more than comfort or desire. Samuel grew in the temple, learning, serving, obeying, faith shaping his mind, loyalty guiding his actions. Even as a boy, he began to hear the voice of God, a calling that would change Israel. God spoke to Samuel, revealing judgment and guidance, choosing him to be a prophet, to advise kings, to shape the nation, and to speak truth without fear. Hannah's loyalty had shaped a destiny. Her obedience to God's plan, her trust in divine timing, had altered the course of a family and a nation. Through Samuel, God called Israel to repentance. God guided kings. God revealed his will. The faith of one woman, the loyalty of a heart, had rippled through generations. The story teaches that loyalty matters, that faith can shape history, that obedience is not easy, but it carries power beyond human understanding. Even today, Hannah's devotion speaks to those longing, to those waiting, to those praying in silence. Faithful hearts can alter destiny. Trust in God can bring life. Obedience can change a nation. Loyalty that honors God changes more than one life. It shapes families, it shapes nations, it creates legacies, and it NDS, the world, that faith and trust are never wasted. Even when the path is long, even when desire seems unanswered, God's plan unfolds. Through loyalty, through faith, through obedience, a shepherd who refused to fear giants. The valley lay quiet, the morning sun reflected on stones. A giant stood on the battlefield, towering, armed, terrifying, and the army of Israel trembled. Fear gripped the hearts of men. They looked at the giant and saw only strength, power, invincibility, but not courage, not faith. David arrived, a young shepherd, small in stature, unarmed except for a sling and stones. Yet his heart was steady, filled with trust, not in weapons, not in armor, but in God. He had brought food to his brothers. He had heard the taunts, the challenge, and he had come not to fight out of pride, but to defend the honor of God, to protect his people, to confront evil with faith. The giant mocked him, laughing at the boy, not seeing the courage, not understanding trust. He thought only in terms of strength and fear. David responded, with words that pierced deeper than any sword. He said, "The Lord will deliver, not by sword or spear, but by his power, faith stronger than fear, trust beyond the battlefield." The soldiers whispered, some doubted, some hoped, but David stood firm. He chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, each one a symbol, each one a tool. each one a means to act in faith. He ran toward the giant, not reckless, not blindly, but with purpose, a sling in hand, a stone ready. The stone flew, hit the giant, direct and true. The great Goliath fell. The valley shook with the collapse. Silence followed, then awe. The army of Israel surged, not by swords, not by numbers, but by courage, by faith inspired, by trust in God. David became a symbol, a shepherd who faced giants, not for glory, not for personal gain, but because he trusted, because he believed, because he refused to let fear dictate action. The lesson endured. Fear is not defeated by weapons. Giants do not fall by might alone. Faith confronts. Obedience acts. Trust prevails. Even today, the story speaks to hearts in fear, to those facing impossible odds, to those overwhelmed by challenges. God's power works through the willing, through the brave, through the obedient. David faced the giant, refused to fear, and the giant fell, not because of size, not because of skill, but because of faith. And generations remember a shepherd who trusted God, a boy who acted boldly, a lesson that courage rises when fear is set aside and faith leads the way.